John 15:8 gives us really a good example of how flexible ginomai is, and also how tenses are usually dealing with aspect and not with time, even in the indicative. In tuto edoxaste hapater mu, hina karpon polon ferite kai geneste emoi mathetai. In this, and again, in tuto can point backwards or forward, but here's pointing forward. My Father, and this is an aorist passive, isn't it? But you'll find it translated, is glorified. We'll come back to that. That, in this case, the hina is not in order that, but a simple that, giving you the content. Much fruit you bear, and again, subjunctives, got to look for those hints, in order that you bear much fruit, and here's your aorist middle subjunctive, and be disciples to me, or my disciples, and we'll come back and look at this as well. So why is this an aorist passive? Well, this is what's called a nomic aorist. This is where, even in the indicative, the tense has 0 times significance, and it's all aspect. It's this event of what does it take to glorify our Father. So it's gone into the aorist, but it's not past time, because actually it's referring to the future, isn't it? The bearing of fruit in the future. So we translate it with the present. In this my Father is glorified, that much fruit, and again, another good example of how you never talk about variance without talking about significance. The variant reverses the order polon carpon, no difference in meaning at all, in order that you bear much fruit and, okay, ginomai. This is your aorist middle subjunctive, right? And the way I remember ginomai basically is ginomai means to be or to come into being. But the problem, of course, is we don't become Jesus's disciples when we bear fruit. So what's going on? This is why you always have to have a good Greek dictionary. So you can see ginomai, number 1, to be born, to be produced, to be manufactured, to be performed. And you go through the meanings, and none of them quite fit this context until you get down to number 7. To come into a certain state or possess certain characteristics. And the glosses are to be, prove to be, turn out to be. So it's a variation on the idea of what you become, but you don't become his disciples when you bear fruit, but rather you show yourself to be his disciple when you bear fruit. So you always have to have a good dictionary, Bauer, and you have to be willing to page through the different options to find one that fits the context. It's interesting that in terms of the variant here is a future middle indicative. And you can see why they made that change, because you will prove, you will show to be my disciples. It's a natural change for clarity. But the problem is that puts you in a hina clause with an indicative, which really can't be the case. But somebody wanted to make sure that we understood that this proving ourselves to be disciples is something in the future. So I'll go ahead and phrase it. In this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and in so doing you show yourself, you prove to be my disciples. So we need to put this under glorified, and then because you have this parallel structure, but we're also needing to put a tab in there because we want to line up both phrases. So now I can indent a little. So this is how Jesus' Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and you show yourself, you prove to be my disciples.